Welcome to Building Fortunes Radio. Make sure you check us out at buildingfortunesradio.com. Along with our marketing partners, we're here to help our PM Marketing Network Lead customers build their businesses and make the world a better place. At Building Fortunes, we know how much your business means to you and the people important to you. So spread the word, tell a friend, join our newsletter, and go make a difference in your world. Now on to our show with your host, Peter Mingles.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingles here. You're listening to us on Building Fortunes Radio. That's www.buildingfortunesradio.com. My daughter just texted me right in the middle of when I started to do this introduction. So we are here on Building Fortunes Radio with a special edition of a Monday, 9 p.m. Eastern with a friend of ours, Glenn Logan, who is also a gentleman who runs a YouTube channel called MLM is Fraud. And he's we were talking a little bit before. He's coming in from Australia. He dropped off and then he just came back on. So sometimes we have this challenge until his connection sticks, it seems like, but he'll be back on, Scott. So we are here with Scott Johnson. This is actually Scott Johnson's show. It's a special edition of our Saturday edition, but we're doing it on Monday night because it fits Glenn's schedule better. Actually, today's Tuesday night. That's right. We had to push it off by a night. But anyway, don't worry about the dates. We are here talking with Scott Johnson, and we're having conversations that Glenn had mentioned about, I got to turn Glenn's microphone on, about Marco Mukuber's MLM conference presentation run by Professor William Keep over at the College of New Jersey, I believe it is, where William Keep is a marketing professor, past dean, and have to be a smart guy if you're a college professor, I suppose. And Marco did a presentation over at that university in March of 2023, and people have different opinions. I suppose if you like Marco, you probably like the presentation. If you're not crazy about Marco or you have a critical thinking, people like us, meaning me, Peter Mingles, and then Scott Johnson, we say, you know what, there might be some softball issues in there, but some of the arguments are just flat out, flawed. And we're here to discuss our portion of it, although we've discussed it many times before on Building Fortunes Radio. So, Glenn, let me just do a microphone check. Did you figure this out? Are you able to come in? Glenn, Glenn had to drop off. So it's been almost every radio show we've done with Glenn. He's got to do it a couple of times before the connection sticks. So, Scott Johnson, thanks for being here. And if you want, why don't we do an intro, assuming that Glenn's going to be able to get a connection that sticks while you're doing your intro. And I might interrupt you as we go.
Yeah, no problem, Peter. Yeah, he's calling in from Australia, so, we don't know what his interconnection is with the internet, as George Bush used to say. So we'll just keep letting Glenn try, and I'm sure he'll make it back in here very shortly. And, yeah, we are a night late here because yesterday I had a commitment on Monday evening, and I thought it was going to be next week, but it was this week. So that's why I contacted you guys. I think it was early Monday to say, hey, we need to, either do a show with Glenn. Yep.
Let's see if Glenn's here. Glenn, you here? Darn. Glenn, I see you. Your microphone's turned on. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to try it again. Glenn, you are here. Your microphone's turned on. Glenn, you're here. Your microphone's turned on. I don't hear him, Scott. Scott, I'm going to mute you out just in case, so I want to hear if I can hear anything from Glenn. So hold on 1 second.
Sure.
So Glenn, are you there? Glenn, are you there? Glenn, are you there? Oh, he dropped off again. So we'll give him another chance. Go ahead, Scott. I'm sorry, but I'll interrupt you if he comes in because we want to make sure the connections fit.
No, that's quite all right. So, I let you and Glenn know you could either do a show with just you and Glenn last night or the three of us tonight, as long as both you guys were still available. So that's why we have this show tonight versus our usual last night. I think this is our third show now during the week with Glenn, Peter.
Yep.
I think it's the third one. So
yep.
This is becoming a tradition very quickly. And certainly the more we do this, the more we're going to reinforce that internet connection between Australia and the phone line. I I guess it's in New York is where I call in. I don't know what your link is when we send it, or when you send a link to people in other countries, which is really cool because it's free, right? They don't have to pay anything to call from other countries, which is really a terrific thing because we've had guests literally from around the world. We've had several from Europe. We've had them from Taiwan, from Iraq. Trying to think where else.
UK plenty of times.
Yeah, UK. In fact, we're going to have another UK guest here the week after next, the Saturday after this next Saturday. This Saturday, we're anticipating one of the two insurance guys that Marco interviewed, quote unquote interviewed, and we're going to let him tell his story instead of Marco interrupting him every couple seconds to get his really stupid point across. And we're going to discover, I think, what's really going on with these insurance companies versus, Narco's biased view and just really uninformed. He's really stupid and he just doesn't get it. And so hopefully we can, get the side of the story out that makes more sense, at least for people that aren't stupid. So, and that's really who we're talking to here. We're not really talking to Marco. We're just talking to everybody else so that they can see how stupid Marco is. And that's sort of the goal. So,
Glenn is that up? He's coming back in. Yep, let's just see if we can get him. Come on, connection. Yep. Come on, connection. Come on, connection.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Glenn, get there. Okay, good. Yeah, don't move. You're on.
Awesome. I'm not sure what happened. Just cut out.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, Glenn, no problem. No problem. So, let's get right into it. We were just sort of stretching it out there, Peter and I were, while you were trying to get back in. So the goal of tonight's show is to talk about some of the comments that I had about always stupid Marco, the narco, Mook, his goons, the shyster, as we call him. And each of those words has meaning. I won't go into the details now. Anyway, I had a series of comments, and we're going to jump around a little bit because Glenn had a couple of special requests here from this list of comments, and I'm glad to skip around and cover. Now, this first comment came in during the 8th minute that Narco was giving his presentation in Washington, D.C., this anti-MLM conference. If you go to MLMconference.com, you can actually see his presentation and all the other presentations. And by the way, this is the third year they've done it, and they really have gotten nowhere. As far as I'm concerned, they just keep talking and talking and just spinning their wheels. So anyway, during the 8th minute, he talked about the 99% failure rate, and I just wanted to make sure that people understand that probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the people that quote unquote fail, they don't even last a year. And the main reasons that I found in my own personal experience was either they were lazy or they were scared. Something frightened them. For example, maybe they got rejected by their friend or something like that, and then they didn't like that feeling, so they quit. Or, a lot of them, again, in my personal experience, they were just lazy. They just decided, I'm not going to do anything. And so I'm not challenging the 99% failure rate. I just want people to know that a very large majority of that 99% really didn't even try. They didn't try very hard, at least. They almost quit before they started. Now, they were the lucky ones, actually. The ones that are lazy and scared, they don't lose nearly as much time and nearly as much money as those of us who did apply ourselves and got scammed by the tool scam and the overpriced Amway products. So they actually made out like bandits compared to the people who applied themselves and tried to follow, as they say, the system. So that's where I'm coming from. I just want people to know, because in one of the sort of sources of this information was a class action lawsuit called Picorni versus Quickstar, and was called Quickstar back in the late 90s through the mid 2000s or so. This lawsuit, it's P-O-K-O-R-N-Y, Picorni. This lawsuit, the settlement, what they did was they did a settlement, and the terms of that were that all of the people who bought a starter kit over several years time period would get something like somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 worth of Amway products. So they weren't giving out cash. They were giving out Amway products. It's almost like rubbing salt into the wound, right? You're in Amway, and then they don't give you any cash. They give you Amway products. And by the way, the judge decided to value the products at full retail price. And so even though Amway probably spent, I don't know, 15, 20, 25% of the retail cost.
I'd argue 5%.
It could even be lower. Manufacturing these products, they counted as if they were the full retail price, which was ridiculous. I sent a letter to Judge Conte, who was the judge presiding over it. Never heard anything back. But anyway, the percentage of people that showed any kind of interest, because they sent out emails, and I don't know if they sent out letters, but somehow they contacted a whole bunch of people to say, hey, this settlement is being finished up, and you are being awarded this around $100 worth of products. That's really, like you said, Glenn, $10 or $20 out of Amway's wallet. But they got such a small number of people, such a tiny percentage, that were even interested in getting even free Amway products, that they doubled it. They literally doubled the reward from again, I'm not sure the exact amount, but it was like $100. They said, hey, let's make it $200 and see if more people will get interested. I don't think too many more people were interested, but they stopped it after they doubled it one time. But again, those are the people that just bought a starter kit and didn't do anything. The people that actually lost money, people like me, the reward was around 5% of the money that we spent on tools. So, one out of every $20 we got back. So, big celebration, right?
Yeah, Scott, I've got to really disagree with you there, though. This, to me, is the biggest falsehood that the MLM companies sell. This is demonizing the victims. This idea that people that quit are lazy, they're negative, they're losers. I mean, the reality is that most people that quit because they do a little tiny bit of research on the company. Anybody who joins Amway and then at a later date does 5 minutes, honestly, 5 minutes of research. If you just read the Wikipedia page, you're out. I just think it's wrong to say that the people are leaving because they're scared and because they're lazy. It's quite simply not true. And I think my dad is proof of that. He proves that you can literally spend every single day sitting in a taxi, prospecting passenger after passenger after passenger, listening to the tapes around the clock, going to meetings at night, showing the plans, and the business it's impossible to make work. But this is Amway's number one tactic: blame the victim. Blame the victim, call them lazy, call them stupid, call them scared. I'm surprised that you fall for this, Scott, because you know about the evils of Amway. You know how manipulative they are. You know about their tricks, and yet you amazingly fall for this idea that the reason why people are quitting is because they're lazy. I mean, you got to ask the question: other franchises, other businesses, they don't have these sort of failure rates. They don't have these sort of early dropouts. Why do you think that is?
Well, one of the reasons is the bar is very low to get an anti-MLM. So it doesn't cost much to join, and therefore there isn't much skin in the game. If you understand that turn of phrase in Australia, they don't put much into it. And so it's easy to step out of it. With a franchise, you're putting in a lot of money. It can be anywhere from $50,000 to maybe $1 or $2 million for like a McDonald's franchise. And so you're putting your whole body into a franchise, and, you have to work hard to get that money back, and you're not willing to just turn your back on it. Whereas with an MLM, if you get rejected by somebody, say, "Oh, that doesn't feel good, I think I'll quit." And I did leave some space there. I said 2/3 to 3/4 of them are lazy and scared, and so that still leaves 1/3, 1/4 to 1/3 that don't just quit right away. And that's your dad. I mean, he's hung in there for a long time, and it's unfortunate. Now, when I joined in 1993, there was no internet. The internet didn't come along until, late 94, I think it was 5. So there was no internet to look at. And even when there was an internet in the early days, from the mid to late 90s, I would say there wasn't a whole lot of content. The content had to be added over time. And in the early days, there was no videos, even audios, because it was all text. It was all slow speed. It was all, the old dial-up telephone connection. And so you really didn't know what information to trust or not trust, because there really wasn't any kind of, variety of information to research different points of view. It was very limited. So, until around 2000, even the internet wasn't that useful. In 2000, when we started getting more bandwidth to our homes and so forth, and people could start putting on audios and videos where you could really listen and see things, that makes a much bigger impact. But even back in 1979, that's way before the internet, Jay Van Andel was giving testimony in the FTC case, and he was asked, what's your dropout rate? And he said, well, it's around 75% the first year, and then years 2, 3, 4, 5, each year it's about 1/4 of those people. And so, that was his sworn testimony, which is very consistent with my personal experience over several years' time with observing the people that I recruited and how they responded after they joined. Most of them just disappeared. I mean, you never saw them again. It was incredible. There was one couple that stuck with us all the way up until I found out about the tool scam in 2005. I explained it to them, and for whatever reason, they were more loyal to the upline than they were to me. And so we sort of parted our ways. But it is a strong pull. I mean, that's kind of analogous to your dad staying in for so long, because this couple had been with us for probably over 10 years. And we had spent more time and money and effort trying to help them with their business than anybody else on the planet. We drove to their place 100 miles away, showed the plan to their prospects, and did just a lot of personal things like that with them. And still, they were more loyal to the upline than they were to us. In fact, they even requested that we allow them to be reassigned to our upline platinum versus to us. And we could have signed off on that and said, sure, if that's where you want to go, you can go there. But I refused to sign it. And the reason I refused to sign it wasn't to be mean. It was to give them time to think about it, to think it through, because I had actually spent 2 sessions, probably an hour to 2 hours, and we're talking face-to-face here. This is not on the telephone or anything. We were right across the table from each other, and I'm explaining the tool scam to them. And again, their loyalty remained with the upline. And so what they eventually did after I refused to sign the paper to transfer them was they quit, and then they stayed out for 6 months, and then they re-signed up under our upline platinum. That's how you can get around that, but you have to sit out for 6 months. which again, I wanted to give them time to think it through. And I never really talked to them again, but I heard stories that they didn't really go anywhere. In fact, they even joined a different upline, and that didn't go anywhere. And eventually they quit the whole thing, just like most people do. You know, it took them longer. But anyway, that's, that's my personal experience and my research, and it's all consistent. And that's why I said what I said.
Yeah, if I can jump in.
Yeah. Yeah, can I say something in a second?
Yeah, you can go first, Glenn. Go ahead.
You make some interesting points there. You talk about when you were in it, there wasn't an internet to inform people of the truth of Amway. But I remember when me and my father got in, everybody knew what Amway was. Everybody knew somebody who had been a victim of Amway. This is in 2001. This is before YouTube was invented, and this was long before there being an anti-MLM community. This was at a time when Amway, the media was scared of the Amway Corporation. Just 4 years earlier, Amway had taken some filmmakers to court and banned the movie Welcome to Life. So there wasn't much in the media about it, but what there was every single person that you spoke to about it, even though it was being called A2K, not Amway, and at the same time in America and in Canada, it was being called Quickstar. You'd explain to somebody what it was, and most people pretty quickly would go, that sounds like Amway. Is that Amway? So Amway's attempt to trick people into thinking it was a brand new company might have had a little bit of impact, but most people saw straight through it. So even before the internet and YouTube and the anti-MLMers, the main reason why people were dropping out almost immediately was because they would be told by everyone they spoke to, Amway's a scam. I know this person who did it. They said they were going to become millionaires. They didn't. They make people, I remember people saying, these guys are making most of their money selling motivational tools. And then, surprise, surprise, within a week, the sponsor was saying to me, you have to go to this function. This function's going to change your life. If you don't go to this function, you can't succeed. So I figured it out. I figured it out without looking at Wikipedia, without looking at the internet. I didn't have the internet in those days. Most people in 2001 didn't have the internet. It was very expensive. So it was hard then, just with word of mouth. But today, with the internet, Wikipedia and YouTube, I would say it's almost impossible, because if you're going to sponsor someone and have them not quit, you need them to not look at Wikipedia, not look at YouTube, not do any research at all. And even if they do all of that, everyone they speak to is going to say, Amway, I know what that is. MLM, I know what that is. So, yeah, I can't say it strongly enough. I think it's absolutely wrong to victim blame and call the participants who don't succeed lazy, unmotivated, scared, because anybody who does any research at all is not going to stay in. So to me, it's really wrong, because you won't find another example of a business where you've got that sort of quick dropout rate. And you talk about a reason being, which kind of makes some sense, but the MLMs that cost $100 and the MLMs like LuLaRoe that are quite expensive, they have the same sort of dropout rates. So your point is, because it's really cheap, people get in and don't put in as much effort, and that's why cheap MLMs have a higher dropout rate. But the MLMs that are very expensive, there's some MLMs that cost thousands of dollars to join. They have the same quick turnover rate, the same dropout rate. So I don't think it's reasonable to say that the reason for the quick dropouts is because it's very cheap to join. Because if you compare companies like Amway that are cheap to join and the ones that are expensive, the numbers are almost identical.
Well, the numbers could be close to each other for different reasons, right? I mean, in LuLaRoe's case, maybe people spend a lot of money very quickly and drop out, whereas with Amway, there's other reasons, and there's lots of reasons here, by the way. I'm not saying there's just one reason why people drop out.
Let's talk about one point in particular that you said. You said that the reason for the high dropout rates was because people didn't have much skin in the game. people in LuLaRoe have a lot of skin in the game, and they still drop out at the same sort of rate that they drop out in Amway. So I don't think that's a major reason as to why people are dropping out of Amway so quickly, because there's not much investment when you join. It's more about the fact that they're doing some research, and all the research is very comprehensive and very clear-cut that there's a 99-point-something% loss rate, and anybody who's sensible is not going to continue along with a business where there's a 99% loss rate. And Amway knows this. That's why they went to so much effort to rebrand. They went out of their way to rebrand to Quickstar and A2K, because they know that they've got a horrible reputation everywhere they go, and they need to have people not think it's Amway. And that they can try and do that, but their reputation is too far gone. So the tactic they use is just to blame and to victimize and to paint millions and millions of failed distributors as lazy, negative, scaredy losers, which is completely and utterly false. I feel most people that join MLMs they tend to be motivated people who really want to become entrepreneurs, want to become business people, but don't have enough money to buy a traditional business. So what they instead do is they buy an MLM starter pack, hoping to start a business with no money. So, to me, companies like Amway are taking advantage of ambitious, entrepreneurial people who don't have any money. And to me, that is shameful.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And when I joined, again, before the internet, the story from the upline was, now don't go talk to your, neighbors or your friends, your coworkers, your relatives, and ask them if they think Amway is a good thing, because a lot of those people are going to have the impression of the olden days when it was, the little lady pulling her red wagon down the street, house to house, selling soap. And those days are over. Now we're talking 1993. Those days are over.
Sorry, Scott. Those were the better days. Those were the days where they had dropouts. There was far, far, far less dropouts. The average person made far more money on average when they were actually going door to door and actually direct selling. It was still bad, but it was far, far better. You said before that I think one of the founders was DeVos or Van Andel said that the dropout rate was 75% in the first year. That's far, far more today. So that old model was a far better model than today's model.
Yeah, I don't know how much money they actually made. I don't know how much success they actually had, and I don't know how common that literally was, as far as going door to door selling soap. That's kind of a turn of phrase. I'm not sure if too many people physically did that, but that was the picture they were trying to paint, right? They were trying to paint this picture that Amway is a lot different than it used to be. Whether it really was different or not, they were painting this picture that it is different. And so that's why they told us, now don't go and ask everybody, because they're going to have this impression in their minds that's totally wrong. Whether that actually occurred in the past or not is immaterial. The point is, you're going to get input from other people that's not accurate as far as how we do the business today. Now, the modern reincarnation of that is not only don't do that, but don't go on the internet, because you can find bad stuff about any company. Okay, any company out there, you can go Google and you can find bad stories about them. So
not like Amway. Not
well, but it is true. And so what they're trying to do is prime the prospect or the brand new distributor for finding stuff like that. And then they tell them, look, we're in here to make you money, and we're on your side, and we're going to help you, and just forget all that negative stuff out there. Don't even look at it. Or if you look at it, understand that, those are broke losers and quitters and, yada, 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 as far as, painting them with in a negative light. And so that's how the upline gets around it now is they'll, blame the internet for being a negative place. In fact, I heard a common phrase. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, if I can jump in. So We have 30 minutes left, and we're still on the first topic, and we're kind of stuck on Amway. We're talking about Marco's speech, so this is going to take us the next 52 weeks, which I don't really want to do if we're going to stay stuck on each one. But I have a slightly different spin. First of all, my background was in direct sales and direct sales management. So the biggest problem I have is Marco's statement is a misunderstanding of how the industry works. And bringing that up as a failure point is wrong. I'll give you my example. In direct selling, there's a high, I'm not going to call it a failure rate, I'm going to call it a turnaround rate or a turnover rate. So people come, people go, and it's a big number. It could be for different reasons. They don't make any money, they get disillusioned, they find better jobs, they don't like their manager, could be a whole bunch of other things. And that's just the way it is. So that's just the way it is. And the problem is people like Marco go up and consider themselves to be an MLM guru and use it as an anti-MLM statistic because there's a high turnover rate, as if that's bad. No, that's just the way it is in many other industries as well as MLM. So it's a non-issue. It's kind of like if you're making this a negative, it's a matter of how it is presented when people are joining. Now, I have to agree, almost everyone does it wrong because they paint the picture of lifestyle of the rich and famous, and you're going to be able to get full-time income quickly. And it's a get-rich-quick scheme, whether they say it or not. And they use MLM math, which Marco loves, 5 by 5 by 5 on a math model, and shows them they'll be making $47 million, on the 7th level, within 3 months as this thing progresses. All of those things make it deceptive as far as the way it's presented. That's the argument, but not the idea that it's a high turnover rate. So that's the point that I just want to make. So let's move on to another topic. Otherwise,
can I say something on that?
Sure.
In your traditional direct door-to-door sales sort of setups, I agree.
Got to remember, I did that for 12 years on a competitive level as an area vice president. So that's my hometown. Yep.
I agree. The dropout rates were very, very high, but not even close to what the dropout rates are for today's MLM companies, where we're talking 99%. The worst jobs, McDonald's jobs, they have a high dropout rate too. Not even close to 99%. There's no.
Sometimes they have a 400% turnover rate year over year.
That's
meaning
99% though.
That's 400 times. That's four times. 100% of the people quit. They roll people over 4 times. In some fast food
I'm going to look up that data, but I can assure you McDonald's keep more than 1% of their workforce year on year. There's lots of people working at McDonald's for. It's not uncommon for people.
It's in the hundreds of percentages. It's in the hundreds of percentages.
I'm going to look that up. But from what I've seen, it's not that uncommon for someone to work at McDonald's for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. In the MLM game, it is almost unheard of for someone to stay in there for 5 straight years. The worst possible jobs that pay the worst possible wages have a much, much, much higher percentage of people who last multiple years. And there's a reason for that, because even though the wages are low, they're actually still making money, and they're still in a better position than if they hadn't have done that horrible job.
Hold on 1 second.
Ripping them off and exploiting
McDonald's,
them.
I just checked Bard, which is the Google search engine. McDonald's has an annual turnover rate of 130%.